Good morning, Crystal Palace. My name is Galina Rin, and you have joined me for the library lunch here at the Upper Norwood Library Hub. I'm here in our new studio space. It's for live streaming, it's for recording, it's for filming, whatever. Today on my docket, I will be filming promo videos for the Santa Claus that's going to be based in the library over Christmas. Whether that's on Zoom or in person, who can say? What a time we live in, eh? Where people may be zooming into Santa. Amazing. I have a guest for you today, and his name is Ade Sawyerr. How are you, sir? How are you doing today?
Doing good, doing good.
Would you like to tell people who you are and what it is you do?
Okay. Ade Sawyerr is the name. I work for an organization called Equinox Consulting. I've lived in Croydon for the past 35 odd years. My work is mainly in terms of management consulting, working with small businesses, community organizations, and helping on various employment projects. I've been doing that for the past, I guess, 40 years. And yeah, I'm very enthusiastic to share some of what I've done with you today.
Okay, amazing. What have you got any projects going on the go at the moment?
Well, one project has been badly affected by COVID because the person who was commissioning the project uh, got infected with COVID.
Oh,
So it's come to a bit of a stand. But I'm doing a lot of work with community organizations, advising them on the COVID emergency, the recovery, and then adaptation to COVID issues. So I'm doing a series of webinars, and I'm doing one-on-one, providing them with support in terms of how to apply for funding and what to do with the funding. And that's been the base of the work that I've done over the past 3 months.
okay, so because we are one of the we're not somebody that you're involved with, but we are a charity, and often we come across the same problems as everybody else. So what are the main issues that you see reoccurring across your clients? I guess that's a good question.
Well, I think the major issue for most people is that there's this issue about returning to a normal position. And it's kind of very difficult to get across to people that we may not get there. We may just get into something very different in terms of how we deliver our services, and that we need to probably make use more technology in terms of how we reach our users, and in terms of how we involve our users in the work that we're doing, because the plan that we have at the moment it's a plan before COVID, and we need to be able to quickly do quite a bit of research to find out how we can still serve our communities, but serve them really within a new methodology. Find new ways of making contact with them, find new ways of ensuring that we are engaged with them, and find new ways of delivering services to them. And I think that's become fairly critical. But in all these people are still thinking of the old ways we used to work. And that provides a block for some of them. And it also provides a block for some funders in terms of whether if people are being funded the same way, using the same criteria, is actually going to help to benefit the communities that they serve.
So you're helping folks get out to their. I mean, what kind of people are your clients dealing with? Are they? I mean, what are they basically? So like we deal with digital. We have digital inclusion class for folks who are slightly older, who maybe don't use technology quite so much, for example. And then our main basis is the folks on the triangle. So, who are the main markets that your clients are dealing with?
Actually, they come from a variety of users. Increasingly, we're seeing new organizations coming up who are very much interested in dealing with the health and well-being of people. I think that the COVID, quite apart from revealing that there were serious inequalities in physical health for Black people, actually also found out that putting people under lock and key also did affect quite a few people. And the issue is that how do you provide normal services to those people? And so we found out that I find out that there are a lot of people who are involved in community health, well-being issues being set up now. And I also find out that a lot of organizations that had buildings where people came in to those buildings for activities now have to find a way of redefining how they provide the same services to those people. So it's a question of now having to try and go online when they've never done anything before, and actually understanding that probably this is part of the adaptation in terms of people talking to people live but online rather than face to face. So I found out that some of my clients or the users of services need to adapt critically. And part of the adaptation process is about also ensuring that they're able to meet their objectives as those objectives change, and that they are also able to redefine the work that they do so that they are able to properly monitor the work that they're doing, manage the projects very well, and probably be more entrepreneurial in the way in which they look for funding and in the way in which they use the little funding that they get.
Okay.
So,
Yeah. Sorry, I was going to ask: are there any tips that you can give for folks who are trying to apply for funding for their projects at the moment? Because this is a big question for a lot of people, I think.
well, when I speak to most people, I mean, what I tell them is that in order for them to be able to secure some funding, they need to be able to show how COVID has actually affected their organizations. They also need to show how they've dealt with the emergency, and they need to show how they are going to adapt to provision of services. It's not kind of intuitive for a lot of people, but it's actually working with them and helping them to look at new avenues in terms of how they deliver their services. So it's more a little bit of actually brainstorming because now the other difficulty is I'm also offering my services online instead of sitting down with them to do face-to-face analysis. So it's kind of fairly interactive, but it's interactive in a different way. And using Zoom to provide service delivery is something that is also fairly new to me as a management consultant. But I think I'm getting there gradually. I mean, that's why I'm looking at new equipment that I would have to use myself and probably be able to apportion my time properly so that I have a structure to the consultations that I engage in with my users.
Oh yes, That seems like a very sensible plan. Everybody should upgrade their tech now. Actually, now is not a good time to be upgrading tech just because it's very expensive. Very expensive. Everything that was super cheap before lockdown has suddenly become quite expensive. Is there have you guys come across any innovative ways in which your clients are contacting their users? For example, we have St. Christopher's did the Death Cafe here, essentially, and they've taken that online where people can just log in and speak to folks about death and people's passings and stuff like that.
Well, one of the things that I've found uh, maybe started as a nuisance, but has been very useful, is that all these WhatsApp chat groups, which sort of just send out jokes and stuff like that, it's now become a very powerful tool for making contact with people, for actually telling people, informing other people of what's going on in their lives, and actually asking people for assistance. And some community groups that I've worked with have actually started now compiling their WhatsApp groups, and they are probably using them, what would I would say, more productively than just for chit chat. And I think that's one development that I've seen happening. Okay, a lot of people are now also just having Zoom meetings, really just for the sake of the meeting. But it's a way of actually also getting in touch with people and realizing that they are there and there's nothing going on with them. And I think people probably find that very useful because they are able to be more expressive of the needs that they have. So yes, the adaptation is coming slowly. The issue is that how do the groups or the community organizations actually react in terms of turning the use of technology into something that is very useful, in terms of designing new services around online, dealing with them in terms of having these services that are delivered face to face. And I think that is the challenge. The challenge is that how do you restructure everything that you're doing to actually meet people? How do you even hold board meetings online? How do you do almost everything online while still servicing clients? And it's a difficult one, but I think people are getting used to it gradually.
And how have you found the whole period of time that we currently find ourselves in yourself? How have you been handling it?
Well, I've been working from home for some time now. Okay, but it's a different type of working from home. Rather than having an office, I sort of come home and I do all the work, and it's still doing the information analysis of information and pushing things on. It's kind of different now because I now have to organize myself in terms of doing everything from contacting clients, from drawing up proposals, from actually delivering services without having to meet the people who I'm working for, getting paid without actually meeting them. It's a new thing. I mean, I suppose that I'd also have to get used to it. Okay. And also the other issues about how do I collaborate and work with my other partners in terms of us doing everything online without us working together. So this probably is something that this COVID period has been fairly different. I mean, when we went into lockdown, I was kind of initially fairly enthusiastic. Then I became very lazy. And by the time it got to June, July, I was probably back to form, doing things. But But there was a gap period when there was a little bit of uncertainty as to what it is that I should be doing with myself. And now, for me, the challenge is how do I deliver new services in a different way, especially since one of the things that I'm thinking about is how to be able to provide a new type of service to people from the African heritage community, both the young and the old, in terms of extending this whole concept of Black history. And as we seek to be integrated within the country, that will that provide them with no knowledge about themselves? So will that help them in their own identity? Will that help them to actually cope much better in terms of bringing some element of community cohesiveness around? So those are the new issues that I'm sort of thinking about now. And how do I turn that into a service that I can offer online in terms of providing um, some instruments on policy in terms of how people deal with their environment around them in a different way.
So, are you looking at that from a historical and educational point of view? So,
It's really more looking at, I mean, um, when I think about history, okay, I normally think about the world history and its relevance to Africa. And obviously, we all know that the origins of the world came from Africa, and that's where the first man was found. So most issues relating to the religion, the social, the political, the economic must all have come from Africa at some stage. That's probably where the earliest thought of how man organized, and one would say that from the earliest period to date, there have been changes in terms of the fortunes of what has happened in Africa. I think the important thing is to be able to record and present it in such a way that it's it's non-confrontational, but it's also stating the truth. I think somewhere along the line there were issues with slave trade, as not only in terms of the North Atlantic slave trade, but also the slave trade in terms of the people being transported into the Arab world. But it's also important to be able to make sense of all this, that maybe Africa as a continent has not been very relevant to the world. And suddenly, everybody jumps up and now realizes that there's a huge mass of Africanization of the whole world that is taking place in terms of people from Africa coming into Europe and then being able to do things within Europe. That maybe if we give ourselves another century, the world will be dominated by Africa. So we need to be able to tell the African story in a much more enlightening way that is not frightening to be associated with Africa, because with a population of 1.2 billion, and if 20% of Africans came into Europe, what we would realize is that there'll be Africans everywhere, and they'll come with their own culture, and there's no need for them to. It was more integration to borrow from what one would call Western culture, but at the same time to expose the rest of the world to innate African culture, which in the past had been seen as primitive, but which maybe was really where we all started from. So those are the kind of issues. I mean, if one could set an institute that would deal with some of these things. I think that it will help integration in this country much better. It will give our younger people a better sense of pride, and it will also be able to show to the rest of the world that really Africa has a lot to offer to the world, not just its raw materials, but skilled people.
Yeah,
I
it's a
don't know if that's probably too far, but
no, no. I mean, it's a good thing to think about because a lot of people don't think about how social empires essentially go across the places that they live. So, for example, British, everyone knows about that, and then I would consider myself part of the Pepsi generation, which is a generation of people brought up on American culture, whether we wanted that or not, because it was everywhere and it was on our TVs. And now there is the rise of Bollywood and all the anime from Japan. So you've got these other social influences coming in, and it's what's to say that we're not due an African one, which is correct, right? I mean, we like everybody puts all their different cultures into these pots, and Africa will have its time as well. It makes sense. If there's a lot of Africans living in Western countries, then you ultimately have that culture come in and become part of the zeitgeist almost. This the fashionable thing that the kids are into. That's the only way I can describe it. So I've seen a change in what we do, which cultures we prefer. We get our influences from has changed quite a lot, and Bollywood is really likely to be the next one, because of their industry. I'd imagine that, or the anime Asians. Yeah, probably. But yeah, it's
yeah,
great. I
I
mean, it's
mean,
good.
anime and others, and what do you call it, Hollywood and Bollywood and all those are supposed to have had a lot of influence. But now we have Nollywood, which is the film industry coming out of
Oh,
Nigeria, which
Nigeria, yeah.
is very rich in terms of its traditional and cultural content. But then we also look at different political moves that are going on across the world. And what I contrast the politics of the situation is that whilst you have Europe breaking up into bits like Czechoslovakia, Yugoslavia, the Russian republics and everything are all breaking up into bits. Britain is detaching from Europe, and it may just be that Wales, Scotland, and Northern Ireland might also connect from Europe. We find a move in Africa where African Union is now being built on. So that sort of sorting out one of the biggest problems that Africa has had in terms of its economy. And I'm saying that if Africa comes together from an economic point of view, whilst Europe has disintegrated, yeah, we look at things that's happening in the Catalan and all those other places, and I think that they would continue. Yeah, one would probably see a probably more solid Africa dealing with the rest of the world. And by so doing, it means that the younger children who are of African heritage, who are brought up here, are probably going to be a lot more confident that their heritage is not celebrated just once a year during Black History Month, but that their heritage will be visible across the whole year, and that they may also be able to influence English culture in a probably a way that is more useful, in a way that is more enriching, if if I could use that word, and that the mixture and the fusion of different cultures is probably going to make us probably better human beings in terms of. So I look at that really trying to find the key to integration, to find a key where people can deal with the real issues of the world. Because like when COVID came, all that was in the minds of people was really, how do you get food? Funny thing was that the first thing that the shops got short of was toilet rolls and sanitation stuff. And I think COVID is probably exposed again that at the end of the day, the issues that matter are probably the basic issues. And I think that probably be able to educate people and inform people on issues about different cultures is something that is very important.
Yeah, I mean, we would love an exhibition of something along those lines, for certainly at our library, and I'm sure other people would as well. It's a very interesting subject to integrate all the cultures together, and I, being Northern Irish myself, I always think that using the term British rather than English, Scottish, Welsh, or Irish just brings us all together in one big island of fun. One big island of fun. Well, there you go. There you go. Well, we're running out of time now. We could obviously be chatting about this subject all afternoon. But there you go. But if you come up with any exhibitions or anything like that and you want a space to house them in, we'll have you. We'll easily have you up at the library.
Yeah, I'll be very interested. I think that one of the ladies who's in charge of the library, Margaret,
yes,
might be interested in some of these concepts in terms of informing the African heritage community, but doing it in a way that everybody else benefits from it. Very non-confrontational, very non-aggressive, but actually providing rich information about the fact that there's tradition from other countries and that those things will mesh within the culture of this country. And perhaps trying to create a new SE19 culture or Crystal Palace culture, for want of a better word. Yeah.
They're called Crystal Palacians, apparently. Crystal Palacians.
Yes.
There you go.
Or Upper Norwoodans.
Upper Norwegians.
Norwegians or whatever. So I think that can be.
Yeah, why not? Why not? We should be United Norwegians, really, because you want Upper Norwood and South Norwood and West Norwood all together in one kind of larger tribe, right?
But you see what happens, the demarcations happen. West Norwood is in Lambeth. And how do we bring them along?
Sorry, what did you say? West
Norwood is in Lambeth.
Oh, yeah.
Of Lambeth. So how do we bring them along?
We can
artificial partitions again.
We can just pretend. It's fine. We can just pretend that they're in Croydon.
Okay.
Everybody has to come to Croydonia.
Okay.
Join us at Croydonia. Well, thank you, Ade, for joining us. That was amazing. We haven't had a chat like that. I don't think ever on the library lunch. So thank you very much. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much too. I hope once you've finished everybody, I can come back to actually talk about this whole concept of Africanization of Europe.
Yeah, we love it. We love it. We love it. We love it.
Okay.
If people want to get in contact with you, where's the best place to send them?
Oh.
To your website, perhaps?
Yeah, the website will do.
Okay, cool. I'll just put that in the chat for you. No problem at all.
Yes.
All right, cool.
Okay.
Thank you. Everybody, thank you very much for joining us. We will be back tomorrow at 12 o'clock. What day is tomorrow? Tomorrow is Wednesday. We are doing Lady Crimpeline, who is a member of our little community up on the Triangle for Shores. And we'll be hanging out with her tomorrow at 12. Well, thank you, Ade, for joining us once again.
Thank you very much. Okay.
Thank you. And we'll see you all
Bye.
tomorrow. Okay, bye-bye now. Bye-bye.